Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Angela Brennan and today I'm bringing you a video on embossing folder techniques, specifically 3D embossing folder techniques, and I used the Spellbinders Amaryllis Garden 3D embossing folder to demonstrate this. This is the third and final video that I'm doing on the Christmas collection released by Yana Smakula via Spellbinders. I'll insert the link to the other two videos from this collection in the description below if you'd like to check it out. I start off by doing some ink blending on the Strathmore Bristol Smooth card. This is the card I always use when I do ink blending because I think it's an ideal base to do ink blending, and that's one of the key ingredients. And the other two ingredients for successful ink blending is domed foam pads, as I have on screen here, as well as juicy ink pads. I store my ink foam pads in this tray here, so I've got a foam pad for each color of Distress Oxide and Distress inks, and this makes it really easy to take them and use them and put them back as well. I've got a video that shows on how I store all of these ink pads as well as the foam pads, and I'll put that in the description below as well. Once I've done the dry embossing, I just swipe some metallic gold ink lightly across the embossed panel so it picks up all the raised areas and highlights in gold all the raised areas, and against that ink blended background that looks really pretty. This is one of the first many techniques I do. The next technique is I've just embossed the card panel in the embossing folder on white card, and I'm going to be using 4 pale colors here and lightly applying the ink on the raised areas. So I just wanted to get, I'm not looking where the flowers are, I'm just putting a general application of the 4 colors across the card panel. Afterwards, I do go in with a slightly darker shade that touches each center of the flowers and just apply it. So it could be the purple, the blue, or the pink. I just add, it's quite not really visible when I do put it, but then when it dries, it does have a slightly darker shade in the middle. And I just think it looks nice. So these are the techniques where I've employed the embossed. So later on I do show how I do some techniques with debossed as well. So for now here, I'm going to show you how I'm going to apply these distress ink colors randomly. So I've chosen 4 colors here. They're Iced Spruce, Rustic Wilderness, Villainous Potion, and Broken China. So I'm applying them randomly onto my Strathmore Bristol Smooth card, and I'm going to deboss it. So what does deboss mean? That means the colored portion will be down. So you see the wording on the folder is on the front. So I'm pasting it downwards here, spritzing some water in the back per usual, and going to put it through the embossing machine. So it's the raised part where you get the debossed image on the ink blended side. So can you see it's a bit concave where the flowers are? And I'm just going to take VersaFine Clear Nocturne ink and apply it so it touches all the flat areas on the debossed card panel. I do like this technique. I've used this technique a few times and I do like the outcome or the results that I get. And here I've done another color randomly, and these are some pinks, reds, and orange, and I'm going to be using pine cone here. So this is a really dark brown. So I just wanted to show a different color combo with the same approach. There you go. This is my favorite technique. Let me know which is your favorite technique when it comes to embossing folder techniques. Now the next one here, I'm going to be trying to be targeting the flowers. So I've got just 2 colors. I do introduce a third color for the greenery or the foliage. I generally use the Crackling Campfire, a distress ink as well, on the entire flower, and then I will take the Aged Mahogany, which is a darker color, just for the centers, and I'll use a couple of greens. I think it's Peeled Pain and Rustic Wilderness for the greenery, and I do use a smaller ink blending brush for that. So when you do these kind of techniques, it's good to have a few brush sizes, ink blending brush sizes, to help with the application of the inks. I really hope you enjoyed the video and enjoyed this embossing techniques. I do like embossing folder techniques because you can get quick cards, really gorgeous colors, and this particular embossing folder has got a gorgeous foliage, and the Amaryllis garden is beautiful. So embossing folder techniques are something I absolutely love because it's quick, and it's really, really impactful. I think that card, that's the word, impactful. If you do enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And when you do subscribe, remember to press that notification bell so you're alerted when new videos are uploaded. I'm placing the inked panel back into the embossing folder, so I'm trying to see exactly where it fits so it can get locked in where the image is, and I'm applying ink directly onto the flat side of the embossing folder, and I'm going to put it through the embossing machine again. And what happens is the background is colored. This is another technique that's a favorite of mine because you get, look at how quickly you get some amazing results. Here I'm doing the same technique as just now, but I'm putting additional colors onto the flowers. I do like this embossing folder quite a bit because the Amaryllis garden, the picture of the flowers, it's so pretty that I'm getting a bit carried away and doing quite a few cards. I think it's important to mention the reason I use the VersaFine Clear ink pads to apply the ink on the flat side of the embossed or debossed panel and even inside the flat side of the embossing folder is because the ink pad is flat as well as quite hardness. The hardness is quite hard. So for example, if I take the Catherine Puller inks, it's quite soft, the ink pad, so it doesn't allow an application on the flat side quite as well, in my opinion, based on what I've used. So whenever I do this kind of ink application onto the flat side of either the inked panel or the embossing folder itself, I tend to use VersaFine Clear ink pads because I just think it works so well. So for example, I wouldn't use the distress ink pad or a distress oxide ink pad because it's not as flat as I'd like it, and it's softer, the ink pad surface. It's just my personal view, this one. But it's okay to use the softer ink pads when you're applying ink onto the raised side of the inked panel. There's a lot of experimentation that can be done. What I'm doing now is I'm going to be using a colored card. This is a dark teal card. I'm just putting it directly into the embossing folder after spritzing the back to soften the fibers. And I'm applying the metallic gold ink onto the raised part of the embossing folder. Now this is a technique I try. I think you'll need to do it a couple of times. I'm not too keen on it. I do try and develop the technique a little bit more by applying some darker ink onto the flat side with the warm breeze first, and then I use the twilight, which is a darker teal color, because I'm trying to like the color. What I should have done, and probably to try it next time, is probably put it through again so I get more of the gold in the concave or debossed flowers. So I'm not too keen. Despite doing all of it, I even end up doing coloring the pistils, but I end up using the other side to create the card in the end. So you see I've done the technique here by getting it through the embossing folder again and getting the ink into the background. And I'm using a Uniball Signo metallic gold pen here. It's a broad nib, just to highlight the pistils. I think against the teal and the darker teal background, it just pops. I like the way that pops, and maybe I could have used it on all the other colored cards as well, but I think this makes a difference when finishing the card off. The next time here I'm using a red panel and I'm embossing it, but what I'm going to do now is I'm using a couple of Copic markers here just to color the petals of the flowers. I do this technique actually later on in the video. You will see I do it on a white panel, and I use various Copic markers to have quite a colorful panel of Amaryllis flowers and foliage. And I put it to the embossing folder again to get a black background. I liked the way it turned out. This is part of the Christmas collection that's been released by Yana Smakula via Spellbinders. This is the third video, as I mentioned earlier. I've got the other two videos linked below. So the first video is on the Amaryllis die cut, and the second one is on the Festive Poinsettias Better Press plate, as well as a coordinating stencil bundle, where again you can create some really easy Christmas cards. So this technique of embossing folders as well as the Better Press plates, those are really quick Christmas cards and elegant as well. So all you need to do is think of your sentiments. And I do like sentiments where hot foiled. I do like hot foiled sentiments to finish a card. I think it's really pretty, but some delicate die cut ones as well can be pretty. So there is a coordinating sentiment that comes with the collection from called the Home for Christmas. It's a better press plate. Now you can do better pressing, and what I also like about that is you can hot foil the sentiments, and as a bonus comes with coordinating dies for each of the sentiments, so it really allows you to layer it and provide some dimension to it. So do check that out. I've got the links in the description below. Here I've embossed the panel here, and I've used Copic friendly card because I knew I was going to do lots of Copic coloring. I've embossed it and let it dry in the embossing folder so it dries relatively straight, and I'm using various Copic markers to do the coloring. I think I've mentioned a few times that when I buy my Copic markers, I tend to buy them in color families. So I've got a few color families, so certain types of reds, blues and greens, but I buy them in batches of 3 to 4 colors, so I know they are all coordinating. And that's the thing about buying it that way, so you know you're getting markers that will coordinate, the colors that will coordinate and blend easily between the various shades. And rather than buying sets, sometimes you buy set A, set B, I think they have it in the market, it doesn't quite go together. I will link a video that I've done on the various combos of sets of color families for the Copic markers here. So if you watch my videos when I use Copic markers, you'll tend to see me use pretty much the same color families because I've developed, or I've got my collection sorted for those color families. Once I've finished coloring, I'm going to put it through the embossing folder again. Once I lock it back into where it should be, so you're going to make sure the patterns match up, I'll be using some black ink on the flat side. So again, I use the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and sometimes pouncing it a little bit is better, so you get a better ink coverage on the inside of the embossing folder. So what this is going to do is going to color the background, and you're going to give a beautiful image here. I did color it the lengthwise because I thought initially I was going to do a mini slimline, but then I decided to do an A7 card which measures 5 inches by 7 inches, and I'm cutting down this panel to 4 inches by 6 inches. But I also cut down a mat, which is a gold mat here, which measures 4¼ inches by 6¼ inches. I just wanted a little thin frame before I put it onto the card base, so there's a nice white thicker frame as well. And I used double-sided tape to attach the panel onto the card base. And I think this card is really, really gorgeous. It takes a little bit of time, but I think it's worth it. And this sentiment is from the Home for Christmas sentiment press plate die set, which I have letter pressed and using my T-ruler to make sure it's straight on. Obviously, you can hot foil this as well. My hot foil machine is not working at the moment, which is why I haven't hot foiled these sentiments, but I think hot foiling will look lovely as well. And here are all the different techniques that I've done, and I'm going to convert this, or I'm going to assemble this into cards. I'm not going to show you how I put them together because it's the same method. I'm going to put some foam sheet behind each of these embossed panels so that it can lay flat on the card base, and I'm going to use an A6 card size for all of them. An A6 card is a common card size in the UK, which measures 14.8 centimeters by 10.5 centimeters. Here I'm not sure which side of the panel to use, but I decided to use the embossed side because I just like it better. So most of my card panels are slightly bigger than the card base, so I place the foam sheet onto the card base, and then I put the embossed panel onto that foam sheet and cut the excess that sticks out from that A6 card. I like doing it this way because it allows me to make sure that the card front is nice and flush, and I don't have to be too pernickety in how I'm going to place that embossed panel onto the card front. This way I can make sure that it's nice and full. And here's another sentiment from that set. This is a purely just white embossed. Now I didn't clean my embossing folder well, so you can see a slight pink hue in the background, and the wax seal is from the October 2024 Wax Seal of the Month Spellbinders Club Kit. I did put some splatters on some of the cards, so I used either the splatter white or metallic gold watercolor to do some splatters. With splatters, the size of your paintbrush and the consistency of the paint or splatter dictates the size of the splatters. This sentiment is from the Festive Circle sentiments, and this one is the wonderful script sentiments. I've got all of this linked in the description below if you want to have a look at it. The great thing about these embossing folders is it's easy to make an attractive and impactful background to the card front with these embossing folder techniques, and you just need to choose your sentiment. I don't put a lot of other embellishments because I want the background to shine. And this is my favorite. It took me the longest time to do coloring each of the colors with the Copic markers, but I love the fact I can get the dark background so easily. Here are close-up pictures of all the cards I've created, and I hope you've been inspired. There are so many more embossing folder techniques that can be done. In fact, as I was doing the voiceover for this video, I was thinking there's another technique where you can take your foam pad and apply ink onto the raised part of the embossing folder itself. I'll probably do that at another video when I do embossing folder techniques. So many more different techniques to be tried with embossing folders, and here is a very small slice of the techniques available. Thank you so much for stopping by. Happy crafting, and I'll catch you at my next video. Do take care.